Boom.
We're live. Welcome everybody to the weekly LeoFinance AMA. Today is July 12th. Me and Mitch back at it again. Neil is still on his vacation, not a vacation, watching the kids. So
The When Soon Show.
the Wensu show goes on. I'm just getting the announcements out. But yeah, we are back on, while everyone jumps in here, we're back on YouTube on the new channel. Obviously, if you missed it, the old channel got banned because YouTube doesn't like crypto. So we're on the new one, but streaming is back. It was gone for a couple weeks.
Yeah, the YouTube being back online is good.
Yeah, that's where a lot of people watched. I'd say it's like most people watch on Twitter, second most people watch on YouTube, then probably Discord, and then Facebook. So
Interesting. I didn't realize Twitter had that much action.
yeah, well, and it's not necessarily live, but a lot of people watch the recording. Usually it's got,
That makes sense. Yeah.
1,000 views. Yeah.
YouTube's usually good during like when we're live. That's when people are
Right.
interactive. I mean, I remember getting questions in the YouTube chat on the old channel.
Yep. Good. Yeah, looks good.
In fact,
Oh, I think you're muted in Discord still.
I am.
Cool. So we can do some. We got a hard stop in about 40 minutes, so we can do a quick little roundup of what's going on in the Leoverse, and then probably jump into the crypto markets. We're down pretty heavily today over the last 24 hours, so I'm sure people want us to talk about it. So starting off with some Leo stuff, we've got a lot of stuff going on with the UI right now. So we've kind of teased the idea of threads over the last couple AMAs, which I know people are excited about. Threads are essentially a proxy project blank. So we've spent the last, I don't even know, probably close to 2 years building infrastructure specifically with the long-term goal of releasing a project blank, which is microblogging on Hive. And the way we see it, microblogging on Hive and making it work requires you to not make it top level posts. So the content that's created for microblogging can't be directly on Hive in terms of using the actual posting feature on Hive. So that makes us need to get pretty creative with how we handle content for Project Blank. And there's a couple different models that we've basically been working on and building in the background. So to kind of test that and move forward, our motto as a community is we're doing it live and live betas. There's a reason for that. There's a reason for doing stuff live. It's not just because it's fun to break stuff. It actually makes sense to push things live and get as many people testing it as possible. It kind of lets us pull things back and make rapid changes and rapid improvements. So, I would say it's kind of counterintuitive, but the more that things appear to be breaking, the more progress we're making. And that rhymes as well. If you see a lot of stuff breaking on the UI, which I think we've kind of been seeing for the last couple of weeks, that actually means we're making a lot of progress on a lot of different features. So, since the release of community pages, we've seen a lot of things break down on the UI and we've had to fix them. But that's really just a signal that, we've pushed some new features and they require a lot of fixing and updates and, compatibility issues. With Project Blank and the release of threads, it's kind of that one step closer that's really going to push us forward. So threads are going to be basically crypto Twitter on LeoFinance, which was always intended to be released anyways, even alongside Project Blank. But instead of releasing Project Blank and then releasing threads after, we actually decided to release threads first, which will test all the infrastructure for Project Blank. So I'm very excited about, you know, what that means for two reasons. One, for LeoFinance itself, you know, I think it's going to bring an entirely new dynamic to being a content creator and user of LeoFinance. You know, being able to microblog and read microblogs is pretty incredible. And I think if we position it right, it really could be kind of this, you know, crypto Twitter alternative that's directly on a blockchain, and it has no fees. And, you know, there's a lot of platforms coming out right now that claim to be like Web3 platforms for microblogging on, especially since like the Elon Musk news. I feel like a lot of people have tried to go after this whole microblogging thing, but they're building on places like Polygon where there's transaction fees. And I think a couple AMAs ago, Neil said he couldn't imagine any social platform actually taking off if people have to pay a fee, even if that fee is fractions of a penny. Nobody's going to want to pay fees to transact and to create content. So it's really interesting to see that, you know, there's still this hole in the market for a real Web3 microblogging platform that, you know, every other platform we've seen has some sort of issue with it. You know, and you know, that's natural, but I see Project Blank as kind of being that platform that doesn't have transaction fees, doesn't push to the base layer, so it causes issues. It kind of lives on its own second layer, and you know, that's just where I see the future going. So obviously, we're all excited about Project Blank, but Threads is kind of that step to get there, and it creates crypto Twitter on LeoFinance. So I think it could, you know, in the long run, it helps us test all this infrastructure for Project Blank. But in the short run, I think it's going to be one of those killer features for LeoFinance that builds our monthly active users. So, you know, you could look at it as being just as important as Project Blank, the whole Threads feature. And really all that development work for Project Blank is pushed into the Threads feature. So it is kind of 2 years worth of work kind of getting released in this Threads release. And we'll be testing. So if anyone's curious, we'll be testing one of the models that we have for Project Blank with the Threads feature, which is to use comments on Hive. The other model is to use custom JSON, but this model is going to use comments, and we're going to kind of see how it works, especially in terms of scalability. So we'll kind of see how that plays out. It's interesting. If you look at the back end, it actually kind of looks a little bit hacked together. But if you look at the front end, it's still a very clean experience. So I think it could be really interesting to kind of see it in action and see how it scales. And you know, just from our internal testing, I think it scales pretty well. But obviously, like I said, you know, if you don't push it live, it's hard to really know, you know, what things look like. So Threads, you know, I don't have an exact delivery date. Obviously, it's all soon, but we are hoping to roll it out in the month of July. So we'll see how well we keep to that pace. But like I said, I mean, it's basically 2 years worth of work, and we're kind of in that last step right now, kind of polishing the UI and the back end's all ready. So let's see what happens. On the DeFi side, actually, one more thing for the social side, we've got probably like 12 new community pages that are about to go live. I think we're just adding in some of the logos right now. And you know, that'll give us about 15 total community pages. And each of these new 12 community pages, 10 or 12, are going to be run by one of the Leo ambassadors. So there's this new Leo ambassador program, and it's run by the head of business development. Most of you know him. He's a nomad soul, and you know, he created this group, and they're all Leo ambassadors, and their mission is to essentially grow Leo and do kind of coordinated initiatives to grow everything. And this community pages idea was really cool that a nomad soul had, which is give each ambassador a community page and let them be in charge of running it and growing it and reaching out to the actual community out there on Twitter and Medium and Reddit. It's kind of like, you know, it's a really cool idea. It's putting them as the ambassador of a specific page and then having them be in charge of, okay, my job is to grow this page, add content to this page, go out on Twitter, reach out to that community and tell them they've got this page and explain to them what it is. And that if Neil were here, he would ask, when marketing. And I think that's kind of a cool idea to get some organic marketing for these community pages. So we'll kind of see how that plays out. But I would say within the next like 24 hours, you should see like 15 total community pages. So that's like 12 new ones getting added. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see, watch our monthly active users and see if we can onboard some people in the near term.
That's a good idea. I mean, I like that. It's a good idea in terms of, each ambassador kind of having their own page, because it gives them a hub to work from.
Exactly.
And something to build upon. So
yeah. And something really, really tangible that they can watch, because they can see, if they onboard one person, they can clearly see that person creating content and comments within that community page. So
yeah,
it's cool. It gives them very tangible, real results that they can focus on.
Well, and also, it can serve as an example for anyone that is, because like, these days, a lot of times people are their brand. So it is a clear example of being able to build a page, around an individual, so to speak. So
yeah.
I feel like this question is mighty far out in the future, but my free BTC said, do you have any plans to sell ad space on Project Blank to buy and burn Leo?
It's an interesting question. The ad space on LeoFinance currently buys Leo and then is being used. Obviously, this hasn't been released yet, but the new ad incentive model, which is it buys Leo and then stakes it to everyone who's holding Leo power. So it's like a built-in APY. That's kind of how it works on Leo. How it works on Project Blank, we'll have to see when that's released. Like you said, I mean, that's kind of far out in the future.
Yeah.
Well, let's ship Project Blank and then we'll focus on that.
No doubt.
But I actually do think the ad revenue will increase significantly on LeoFinance with both with community pages, obviously, contingent on us growing them, but then also with the threads feature. So if you assume that the threads feature gets usage from our community, which I'm pretty confident that it will, just based on how many people ask when Project Blank, threads are basically Project Blank on LeoFinance. So, it'll once you go to the threads UI, you'll see it's pretty much like using Twitter, but it's obviously on Hive and it's on LeoFinance and it's, crypto focused. So if you assume that we don't even grow our user base, we just keep consistent with our, current user base, and people start using the threads feature. When you use threads, you'll see and just kind of use Twitter and just think about how many times you're clicking to a new page when you're on Twitter. Like every time you see a tweet that you like, you click to open it and it opens a whole new page. And then if you read a reply to that tweet, you click that one and then it opens another page. And then when you want to go back to the feed, you click back and it goes back to the feed. So it's almost like posts on steroids, because when you want to read a post on LeoFinance, you click to open the post, but obviously, that might be 1,000 words and it takes you a little while to read through the post and then scroll down to the comments and look at the comments. Instead, threads are going to be, 240 characters. You click to open it, read it really quick, close it, go to another one. Excuse me. So essentially the actual page views from the current user base are going to skyrocket with threads. And that equals more ad revenue, because each of those pages is going to have ads on them. Just like they do now, but obviously with threads, it basically just creates a more quick user experience where you're kind of flipping back and forth. So it's just the threads feature alone could really do a lot for the ad revenue on LeoFinance. Obviously, this kind of coincides with the release of the ad incentive model that we teased a few months ago. Where, if you have Leo power staked, you actually are getting that ad revenue because autonomously buying Leo and then staking it to every Leo power holder's account, obviously proportionally. So, we're kind of getting to interesting times where LeoFinance started as this blogging platform. And, we said we were going to be, the decentralized seeking alpha for the crypto space. And then we kind of evolved. We released obviously the DeFi platforms and other apps. And then we built our own UI from scratch, and things have changed pretty heavily. And then obviously with community pages, you know, we're kind of segmenting the UI and making it a better user experience. With the release of Threads, we're kind of flipping it completely on its head and saying, you know, we started as a blogging platform. Now we're getting micro blogging, and the entire kind of dynamic of LeoFinance changes. You know, being a user of LeoFinance right now means that you either consume or create long form content. And once microblogging is ready, you know, you release it to a whole new subset of users that wouldn't have used it before. So I think we'll bring on a lot of people. You know, I think a lot of people who are already LeoFinance users are going to become more heavy LeoFinance users, just because they'll be able to do this and they don't need to read long form content. And then I think a lot of Hive users who aren't LeoFinance users are going to jump on LeoFinance for this kind of crypto Twitter on Hive platform. Obviously, you'll be able to earn both Hive and Leo from the Threads feature, which is super interesting. And that's also, I mean, we could dive into that if anyone wants us to, but that's one of the reasons why comments are being used instead of custom JSONs, at least for this initial model. If it doesn't scale, then obviously we have the custom JSON capability, but comments being used means that people can earn Hive and Leo for Threads. So that's obviously, you know, a big plus for anyone using it. So then you've got the existing user base that I think will become more heavy users of the UI. Then you've got the Hive user base that could become heavy users of the UI. And then obviously we got to reach out to, you know, crypto Twitter and try to onboard them. So threads are a killer feature in my opinion. We're also pushing it to Leo Mobile, which kind of gives like a whole, you know, I mean, you could go down a big rabbit hole of how beneficial that is for us to have on the Leo Mobile app. Because people don't want to, first of all, people don't want to, you know, most people don't want to read long form content on their mobile device. I would say, like, you know, when you're on the go, you might be sitting in a doctor's office or, you know, waiting in line somewhere. You know, you can read long form articles, and I definitely do, but not everyone likes that. So being able to just kind of scroll through like a Twitter feed on LeoFinance on your Leo mobile app and just read a couple threads, and then, you know, while you're waiting in line, it's like a whole new use case. So I'm excited to see how that plays out.
I actually have a question. So, you know, we keep talking about threads and, you know, how it's kind of like lives in the comment section. Like, I guess the obvious thing that I'm thinking about is, how does a thread start? You know what I mean? Like, does that start as a comment from a long form post, or can that originate on its own?
So it's a good question. So a thread starts, basically there's two ways a thread can start. You can start it directly, which would require some manual work. I'm sure people are going to do it though, where you actually go to the container post and you create a comment. That parent level comment is the start of a thread. But the real way that most people are going to use it, and this is how it's designed to work, is that you go to the LeoFinance UI and there's a big button on the, so when you go to the threads page, there's a big button at the top and it says create a thread. And when you click that button, it opens a little window that looks like a Twitter. I mean, if you've ever used Twitter, it looks exactly like creating a tweet. So it opens this little window and you can just type your 240 characters and then hit create a thread. And then it'll basically post a comment to the Hive blockchain, and that's the start of a thread.
Okay,
but
cool.
What's actually happening in the background is the UI is having you create a comment, and it's pushing that comment to what we're calling a container post, which is basically a top level post on the LeoFinance UI that's created by basically by a kind of like a shell account. There's just one account, and it creates these container posts. So like, you know, every couple of hours or every couple of days, depending on how fast those containers fill up, it's creating a container post. And then each thread is a parent level comment to that container post. And then any replies to a thread are replies to those parent comments, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So you've basically got a Hive post, right? That's the container. So that it's like a normal Hive blog post. And that Hive blog post is being created by an official account. Just call it, just call it the container account. Then every comment beneath that container post is a top level thread. And then any reply to any comment on that container post is a reply to a thread. Obviously, this makes a lot more sense when it's in action. And like I said, this is like if anyone dives into the back end of how it works. But if you just go through the threads front end, it just looks like Twitter. And then your comments are just being posted at different places on Hive.
Yeah.
So.
Crypto Lemon asked, will there be a way for non-current ambassadors to apply to take care of a community page? Should we make the community vote for a new page per week? I'm sure that my assumption is anyone can apply to create a community page.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone who wants to can create a community page. I would say, let me give a Nomad Soul more work and reach out to him and tell him that you want to put up a community page. He's kind of in charge of the community pages now. So
hey, listen,
there we go.
That's what it is. That's why he's filling that role. So in fact, I heard a good line on a TV show last night. He said to the guy, he's just like, you want to know why restaurants fail? And he's like, why? He's like, because the head chef is cutting lettuce. Stop cutting lettuce. And I was like, that's profound in a very simple way, but it's true. I mean, this is why you hire out positions and why, you have people filling roles, because you can't do all the things. You can't be cutting lettuce the whole time and also creating, 5-star meals. That's what it's all about.
That's good advice.
Yep. Yeah. So that's going to be my new line to Cal from now on. Stop cutting lettuce. Which is basically what I've been saying for like 2 years, just not that it's simply profound.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's smart.
All right, cool. Yeah. So, I mean, when it comes to the community pages, the more the merrier. It's all about expanding the community. So if you have an idea for a community page, or you have a community that you're looking to onboard, like, make it happen. And if you want to be the admin of that page, hit up Nomad Soul and get it done.
Yeah, the community pages give us a cool way for everyone to get involved in growing LeoFinance. It kind of gives you like a proxy subset UI that you can grow on your own. And if you see more content filling it up, you're doing a good job. And then if you want to look at a macro level, you can look at the monthly active users on LeoFinance and see that they're growing. And then we know collectively that we're doing a good job. So that's what Web3 is all about, the collective.
Yep.
Belimo asked, will we be able to post short videos on threads? So that's a good question. Not at first. At first, the MVP is just to post text. It's going to be 240 characters, exactly like Twitter. You can also post images on it. But the videos, you could post a link to a video, but it won't like embed a video. You won't be able to upload a video directly. So embedding videos, I would say that embedding videos and other things will kind of be like that next step, like that V2, doing videos like directly to the UI. So obviously embedding is a lot easier. Directly posting videos requires that we have some sort of video storage backend. So, in my mind, we have this kind of rough roadmap of the next step will be to embed videos from like YouTube and 3Speak, kind of like how it works on LeoFinance.io for posts. So we'll just kind of take that embed feature and put it onto threads. So you'll be able to embed a YouTube video or embed a 3Speak video. I would say the next step after that is to work with someone like 3Speak and essentially kind of have our UI plug into their backend so that you can upload, say a 15-second video or something. I think that would be cool. So obviously that's going to take some work. It's not going to come in V1.
Good old work. Speaking of work, it's work in progress as more and more things get added. What are the updates in regards to DeFi platforms?
Yep. So DeFi. So if you look at the title of this, it says PolyCUB V2 rollout, MTB governance UI vexPOLYCUB. So there's this whole kind of this release package of new PolyCUB features, and instead of rolling them out one at a time, we kind of packaged them up and we're doing it all together. But somewhat. So we had like a phase one rollout, which is the multi-token bridge. And that's, the V2 vaults like pHive, PHBD, PSPS. So those V2 vaults are already out. Then we kind of released the MVP of governance, which is just the governance backend. So we could test it and test the contracts. The next phase, which is the last phase of the V2 rollout, is the governance UI and vexPOLYCUB UI and backend. So, we've talked plenty about this, but the governance UI will let you vote on two things: PolyCUB improvement proposals and yield governance. So I'll drop a little teaser screenshot of the governance UI. Let's see here. If you're watching the recording of this, you should try to make it live to the show so you can get the alpha in Discord. So I just dropped an image in Discord of the governance UI. So this shows the yield governance. At the top, you can see it's showing you how much vexPOLYCUB you have staked. And then below it shows vexPOLYCUB. Obviously, vexPOLYCUB is not yet live. It will be live alongside the governance UI though. So it'll show you how much vexPOLYCUB you have. It'll show you how much vexPOLYCUB you have. Then in the middle, it shows you the supply. So that's like the total in the system. So right now there's 221,000 vexPOLYCUB. Obviously 0 vexPOLYCUB. And then it shows you on the right, I think this is kind of the coolest feature, is the governance power. So it shows you what percentage of the governance you control. So, this screenshot shows an account that has 1.5% of the governance. So, when it votes on something, it's essentially controlling 1.5%. And then it shows you the actual number of your governance power, which is for this account 3,400. So this kind of gamifies governance, and obviously we need a UI to make governance really work. But we've had some ample testing of the back end, so we're looking good now to release the UI and have everyone participate in governance. I think so far we've had less than like 30% participation in governance. Obviously we don't have a UI, so 30% is pretty good for not having a UI. I obviously think it's going to be a lot higher once this UI is live, and you can just, you literally, it's so easy to vote on governance with the UI because you just click vote and then you just confirm it with your wallet and that's it. So it makes it super easy, and I think this is what everyone's waiting for. And then obviously, and then it shows you each farm. It shows you how much liquidity is in there. It shows you the current APR, the current multipliers. So it's super cool. My free BTC said, well, we have to recast the votes once it's live. So this is actually kind of a decision that we have to make. It'd be funny if we put it to a governance vote, but I'm thinking that we should kind of reset and recast all the governance votes. Obviously we could decide, we could just roll in with the current voting. It's kind of up for debate by the team right now. We're kind of debating back and forth whether or not we should reset.
My opinion would have been you just like you leave what's existing, and then people can obviously adjust, now much easier using the new UI as opposed to, because I guess it's good. It's got its positives. If you reset it, then that basically gives everyone the heads up with like, yeah, you need to go redo it. And I guess that motivates people, because like me, I might just leave everything. It's like, oh, great, we got the UI, but I'm fine with my votes as is. So I'm not even going to make any, changes. So
yeah,
I'm voting no.
Yeah, I put a little poll in Discord. So let's see what you guys say.
Yes is to reset, and no is to leave the existing votes. So you don't have to basically go and, because if they reset and you don't go to the UI and vote, then your votes basically are now not doing its thing. Yes. But either way, the most important part is that UI going live is huge. It's really, in the end, we're simple creatures. It doesn't matter how good technology is. It's all about that user experience. Just looking at this, screenshot of the governance page you put in chat, I'm just like, this is awesome. Like, it's got information, everything's in one place. I can vote. Like, this obviously is going to skyrocket participation.
Yep.
especially for people that have like, because think about it, if you have like a small amount of xpoly and it's just like your vote is in your mind kind of marginal, you're like I'm not going to do, you know, transactions to cast votes, you know, it's not worth it, you know, to just even spend those extra few steps. With this, it's just like you click on a link that's, you know, already on the site that you're on, and you know, it's then just literally click another button.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
all
You don't
about
want to
user
jump through
experience.
hoops. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
absolutely. Yeah. It looks like everyone's voted for keep current votes. So
Thus
it's
far,
like,
it's
well,
five
we'll
to
probably keep
one.
them.
You all got another 15 minutes to get your votes in. That's too
Um,
funny.
that's pretty funny. Yeah. Yeah. We were actually, that's a good question, because we were actually talking about that as a team, just like, you know, we could reset the votes and, you know, kind of give everyone like an even playing ground to jump back in. Because obviously most people haven't voted.
Yeah.
It's really a small subset of users that are highly active that have voted.
Yeah. I
Everyone
think the
else is
UI
kind of just sitting on the
announcement, though,
sidelines.
yeah, the UI announcement, I think, is still enough to kind of, you know, notify and grab everyone's attention.
Scales.
Um, and
Yeah, I
that's
think
cool
when the
too.
UI goes live, it'll kind of tip the scales. I wonder how much the yields will change when the UI is live, because obviously everyone will kind of see the yields in their current form and then be able to vote super
Yeah.
easily and change their votes. And um,
I'm
I
gonna
think it could be
100%
interesting.
like review. Like I haven't reviewed my votes because I'm like, all right, it was fine. And honestly, if I could see everything in one place, I probably would have already made some changes to my votes based on, you know, how the yields have changed since the first vote. Um, I know it's a weekly thing, but I voted, you know, when we initially launched it, and I haven't done anything since. I haven't changed anything since. So the UI, I'll definitely, me personally, I'll be more active in terms of, you know, maybe adjusting my votes from week to week.
Yeah.
So yeah, looking forward to the UI. All right, cool. So the plan is, like you said, governance UI, vexPoly, all that's going to roll out together. You said also V2 in terms of what? There's like additional updates to the V2 vaults, or
So V2 is really kind of this like macro roadmap, which includes all of these things like multi-token bridge, which is obviously all the P-Hive, PHBD, PSPS vaults. It includes the governance. It includes vexPOLYCUB, and yeah, that's kind of like this packaged V2. So phase one was just to get those V2 vaults out as soon as possible. And then this rollout kind of continues, and the last phase is the one that, you know, I'm hoping is done this week, which I always love to say, but I'm pushing the team to get it done this week by Friday, which is the vexPOLYCUB back end and front end, and then the governance front end. So I'm excited, and really pushing to get it done this week. So Morty just asked about vexPOLYCUB. So we've talked about it a little bit, and there's you know, we'll give it a little talk right now because it's obviously, you know, this brand new thing, and I don't think we've talked about it enough. So vexPOLYCUB is basically voting escrow xPolyCUB, and it lets you stake your xPolyCUB for 2 years. And in exchange for that, you get 3 times governance power, and you get a 20% fixed APR. So this is going to add like this really interesting use case to PolyCUB and ownership over the platform. You know, it's kind of hard to say what's going to happen until we start seeing the rate of staking. You know, I'm curious to see what percentage of xPolyCUB gets locked up in vexPOLYCUB. At that point, you know, after a few days of it being live, I think we'll kind of have a good metric of how well it's performing. But essentially, the way the contract works is that when vexPOLYCUB goes live, the countdown for 2 years begins, and that countdown is the same for all users. So it's like a global countdown. And if you stake on day 1, it unlocks after 2 years. If you stake on day 365, then you only have 1 year until it unlocks. And anytime you stake, you start earning, obviously that 20% APR is ongoing. So you're always going to be kind of getting the 20% APR. and it's a fixed APR, which is kind of what a lot of people have been looking for, I think, which is just kind of like a predictable, reliable APR. And we haven't really talked about this at length, but it's in the docs. So let me pull up the docs and share it. So if you go to the vexPOLYCUB page on the PolyCUB docs, it'll show you kind of like this chart of how all of this stuff works. But essentially what's going on is, and this is part of V2, it's just kind of like this full scale change of the way that PolyCUB works and kind of turning it into a sustainable economic machine, which is what it was always designed to be. So with vexPOLYCUB, it's basically accruing value out of the multi-token bridge and protocol and liquidity. And that's where that fixed 20% APR comes from. So that 20% APR doesn't come from inflation at all. It comes straight from revenue on the platform. So things like wrapping fees, Oracle staking, and then the protocol and liquidity and what it can generate. And then anything left over above that 20% is just compounded back to protocol and liquidity, which obviously just creates more sustainability for the future. But it's cool because if you look at the big picture, what's happening is the protocol is generating profit from things like wrapping fees and Oracle staking and the protocol on liquidity. And then it's taking all of that and it's buying PolyCUB autonomously through a smart contract from all the different liquidity pools. So it's buying from, the P-Hive liquidity pool, it's buying from the USDC liquidity pool and the WETH liquidity pool. And then it's basically pooling up those PolyCUB tokens and then sending it to the vexPOLYCUB contract. And that's where the 20% fixed APY comes from. It's gonna be cool to see because if you run the math on sustainability, you need to figure out how to, essentially you could look at it as like a surplus and deficit program where like, can you create a surplus of like revenue in terms of, a certain amount of PolyCUB is released through inflation every month. Can the protocol generate more revenue than that amount of inflation? And that would create a surplus. And this is all kind of this is all going to be, that's why I was saying it's going to be interesting to see once we see the actual staking rate of xPolyCUB into vexPOLYCUB. It's hard to say because this is all in theory right now. But I'm curious to see what happens when we start seeing xPolyCUB enter the contract. So MyFreeBTC said, won't this cause a huge dump after the 2-year period ends? Well, look at it this way. Right now, all the xPolyCUB that's held out there is liquid. So if anyone wants to at any time, they could sell their xPolyCUB. What this is doing is letting people who already have xPolyCUB lock it up for 2 years and earn a higher APY. And obviously also get 3 times governance power, which is, amplifies the utility of owning the PolyCUB. So right now you always have that looming threat over your head, right? Like anyone who has and the vast majority of PolyCUB is held as xPolyCUB. So there's essentially a looming threat of 5 million PolyCUB that's sitting in the xPolyCUB contract that can be sold at any time. vexPOLYCUB just locks that up for 2 years. So no, I actually don't really expect that. And if you look at the way that curve works, that's not at all how it works. I mean, like people are always constantly locking it and relocking it. And this kind of leads us into the longer term development of vexPOLYCUB. So the initial vexPOLYCUB contract has essentially has one unlock period for every user in the vexPOLYCUB contract. The second version of vexPOLYCUB is a variable staking contract where you can choose how long you want to lock it up. And the longer you lock it up, the higher your yield and the higher your governance amplification. So that new contract will be released at some point during the lifetime of this 2-year initial vexPOLYCUB contract, and then you'll be able to flip into the new one. So yeah, I don't really expect that. I don't expect it for those 2 reasons. Like you've got the first reason, which is just that anyone could sell xPolyCUB right now, and there's no lockup period at all. And clearly, we haven't been seeing people really unstake xPolyCUB. The rate of staking has only been increasing. This just gives it that kind of lockup for initial or for additional yield and amplified governance.
Good stuff. I've been
Yeah, I
managing
know
to
a lot of
write
people have
the,
been talking about variable staking rates, and I think Taskmaster actually put up a post, which was kind of funny because it's kind of hits the nail on the head. So
I was a lot to keep up with. I'm actually trying to write the recap post
nice.
in real time and host at the same time, which is why
So my free BTC follow up. The issue is having it unlocked for everyone at the same time after such a long time period. Potentially, I mean, if you look at it that way, but couldn't you say that it's perpetually unlocked right now? So everyone has theirs unlocked right now. Like it's just and
yeah,
if
technically,
anyone doesn't want to lock it, they don't have to lock it. So
yeah,
I
I
don't
could
really see it being
liquidate
an issue.
my xPoly like right now live as we speak if I wanted to. So
Right.
I mean, I get it because you get that initial infusion, so to speak, when it goes live, and then the people that are going to do it are going to do it. Here's the thing, though: the majority of those people that are going to do it are the same people that have been holding, xPoly for whatever it is, 6 months now, or how long it's been live. So,
Yeah.
um, I don't know that I would also, be concerned with it because that's always going to be out there with no matter what it is, what the option is, there's always going to be the threat of a bunch of large stakeholders and a potential dump.
Yeah. Yeah. There's always that looming threat. Actually, this vexPOLYCUB though kind of diminishes that looming threat. Obviously, depending on how much of the xPolyCUB gets staked. Like let's just say 50% of all xPolyCUB out there gets locked up into vexPOLYCUB. You've now removed essentially the dumping power of what is it right now? 5 million. So you've essentially removed the dumping power of 2.5 million PolyCUB. So that 2.5 million PolyCUB is no longer liquid. Kind of like how when people stake Hive and it turns into Hive power, there's now a 13-week cooldown before that Hive can reach the market. So yeah,
I do think
I
the
think it's
2 year
going to
thing's
play out.
interesting in terms of like I my assumption was I have a 2 year lockup from whenever it is that I stake, but that's not the case, which is kind of mind blowing. So I mean, if like this launches and let's just say someone new to PolyCUB comes onto the platform, whatever it is, 12 months after the fact, and they see the whole Vex PolyCUB thing. Oh, this is cool. Technically, they're only locking up for a year. That's super interesting.
Yeah. It
I mean,
creates
I
an
get
interesting dynamic where anyone can kind of get a more even playing ground for the governance.
so then what's all right. So on the front side, I get that, and that makes sense. So then what's the or what's the benefit of having this like almost like it's kind of like a set expiration date, on a whole as opposed to individually. So like, is that due to like programming? It's easier that way. Was that a choice as opposed to it just
Yeah,
being a 2 year running clock for, from when you stake?
it was a conscious choice because of the variable staking contract. I have a feeling that we'll roll into that variable staking contract, and most people will, because essentially the way it's going to work is stake your Vex PolyCUB. When the variable staking contract comes out, you can upgrade to that contract.
Oh, I
Um,
gotcha.
and I don't want to the reason why I don't want to talk about it too much is because I don't want to be talking about two different contracts at the same time
No, it's fine.
because yeah,
Okay,
but
so basically there's going to be a quote unquote upgrade, so to speak, at some
right.
point
Right.
to
Essentially, there's going to be a V2 to the Vex PolyCUB, and you'll be able to upgrade directly into it.
make
But yeah,
sense. Yeah, with unlocked, I'm going to cash in on some of my gains. The variable staking card will migrate the dump. I mean, I like in theory, I agree with you, my free BTC, but in reality, then I don't. You want to know why? Because I'm a classic example of it. It's like I got into X Poly when the ratio was like 1.5, right? And now we're at like 22, and I've cashed out none. You know,
and
and that
yours
has
is liquid.
yeah, and that has a couple of reasons. I mean, obviously the price of PolyCUB is lower than when I first initially staked X Poly. I can't say that if PolyCUB was at $4, I wouldn't maybe cash some out. But so I get it. And here's the thing. Everyone's got that cash out price. And yeah, like
Right.
who you kidding? If X Poly 10X's, I'm probably, taking some risk off the table and maybe moving into stable, selling some, moving into stables or selling some into um, maybe like, the try crypto pool or something like that. So I think that's one of those variables that is not, I don't even know if it's worth spending time trying to, mitigate because, people are going to cash out when they want to cash out when it makes sense for them. I get there's points where you can have a bigger majority doing it. And that's, it goes back to what, we're looking at like, charts and you talk about like supply and demand zones. It's just like, all right, cool. When Bitcoin's gets to 30K again, we know that there's going to be a lot of dumpage because a lot of people are going to be back to even and then like, oh my God, I got my money back, let me dump. Or there's going to be people that, bought that dip at 17, 18 and they're like, well, shit, I'm almost double my money. Let me cash out. So those levels exist no matter where you invest or what platform you're on. So, but I get, the whole lump sum kind of freeing up at the same time could, create an environment where now everyone has the options, to sell. So I don't disagree. At the same time, I'm not going to worry about it because if everyone else is selling, I'm probably selling too, because that means I'm 10X on my money. So
yeah, I mean, what
and then
he's
you buy the
essentially
dip.
yeah, what he's essentially talking about is the risk of any stock or cryptocurrency, if because he's saying if I locked $1,000 of X PolyCUB and 2 years later it's worth $10,000. So you're assuming that the price of PolyCUB 10x over the 2 year period, which is obviously entirely possible. But when that happens, that's like that's the risk of anything. It 10x. I think you're going to be pretty happy with it. And if a lot of people say, wow, at 10x now I'm going to sell, that's just a market cycle for you. I mean, when something 10x is naturally people are going to sell. But there's also going to be plenty of people who are going to buy. You can really look at anything for that. Bitcoin, a couple of years ago was $2,000 and now it's sitting at 20,000. So it's, and anyone who bought at 2,000 is pretty comfortable selling at 20. So it's, that's just how a market works. You can't, I don't think you should play the market thinking, if it goes to this price, then this many people are going to sell.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it is, those levels always exist. There's going to be price points where people, there's more people selling than at other levels. And that's essentially what pushes prices up and down in the end. You have levels where people are buying more, levels where people are selling more. So you're going to get your ebbs and flows, and occasionally, yeah, you will get dumps. And you know what? I'm actually rooting for dumps. You want to know why? Because that means prices up a lot, values up a lot, because you don't get dumps, when we're at the lows, you get these sell-offs at the highs. And then, you'll get kind of those things will level down, obviously in a bear market. But you got to start high in order to, to sell down, you got to be up. So, I got to dip in like 3 minutes. So
time flew.
Yeah, time flies when you're having fun. So let's wrap it up. I mean,
Yeah.
speaking of crypto and dumps, I mean, I don't know, Bitcoin's still holding that 19, 20K level. I know we got to sell off, quote unquote, over the last 24 hours, but it's still, above 19, bouncing around that 19, 20. So, be interesting to see how long it continues to consolidate here.
Yeah. What's your before we jump off, what's your quick, 2-minute prediction of where we're headed crypto wise?
I'm in the same boat I was in last week. I mean, I finally actually bought some alts late last night. I added to Rune and I bought some more Atom because I have a little bit of that staked in a Kepler wallet, getting some exposure to the Cosmos because that chain seems to be having a lot of good things going on. So I finally did buy a little more alts, not much. But otherwise, I'm still sitting on my hands because I don't know if this is a new bottom being carved out or if we're going to just consolidate for a while and see another leg down. So I'm just keeping fresh powder and holding on to what I bought, a couple of weeks ago. Like I said, I finally added a little bit of alts and that's it. I'm playing it pretty conservative. If we do see a big level down, if we see another big sell off, that's when I'm going to get super aggressive buying. But Otherwise, I'm happy with the additions I've made. I'm going to keep some fresh powder in case we do leg down. And at the same time, hope we don't, and hope that 20K ends up being the bottom.
Smart. Yeah, I'm just I took kind of like Neil, I just took a big chunk, said for the next 6 months, I'm going to keep buying. And I'm just dollar cost averaging every single day. So
yeah, and my free PT said the CPI numbers are coming in tomorrow. That definitely is going to create volatility in the stock market, which will probably create volatility in crypto, depending on what that number is, because that dictates obviously what the Fed's going to do.
yeah, he said greater than 8.6% equals red. Yeah, I guess we'll see what happens. I think people are dumping right now. Not dumping, but people are selling right now. That's why Bitcoin's down a few percent, just because there's some uncertainty about what's going to happen. So sure, we're already kind of seeing that volatility.
I agree. So just hit the publish button on the when soon recap. I'll
Sweet.
drop the link into the chat if and when this UI wants to. I don't know about everyone else, but when I hit publish post now, it takes a hot minute before.
Lightning is very overloaded. So that's one of the things we're working
It's
on.
been like this for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But it is in now. That was actually not too bad. It's probably like 30 seconds.
Sweet.
So there you
Everyone
go.
Upvote it.
There's the recap. Yeah. Show some love. And I dropped a name, a Nomad Soul's name literally in there in terms of community. So you're welcome, sir. All right. Cat's got a tip. Always a fun time. We got a lot in a short period. And until next week.
All right. Yep. Next week, the 19th. We'll see you guys there.
Indeed. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.